Power is never granted. It is seized, shaped, and honed over time. But the greatest mistake a would-be master makes is the impatience to act before the moment has fully ripened. The world is a chessboard, and every movement must be deliberate, every gesture measured. Those who rush into action are like children throwing pieces onto the board without understanding the rules, their ambitions crumbling before they have even taken root. True influence does not demand immediate recognition. It grows in silence, invisible, yet inexorably expanding, until the world finally acknowledges it with both awe and fear. Patience is not passivity. It is the deliberate cultivation of power, the meticulous preparation of conditions that will favor your ascendancy when the time comes. To act too soon is to reveal your hand, to allow others to anticipate your designs, to squander the advantage that comes from being underestimated. Every move, no matter how small, is part of a larger tapestry that only the patient can see. While others are distracted by fleeting victories or trivial conflicts, the one who masters calculated, patient studies, observes, and plans. In this silence lies the ability to understand the currents of influence, the hidden motivations of allies, the vulnerabilities of rivals. It is through patience that strategy gains clarity. Rushing toward power without preparation is to build a house on sand. The structure may rise, but it will inevitably collapse under pressure. The world rewards those who can endure. To cultivate patience is to learn the art of waiting without despair, to carry the fire of ambition quietly within, letting it smolder while others mistake you for harmlessness. This patience is not mere endurance. It is active engagement with the unfolding of events, a deep understanding that timing is the silent hand guiding every victory. To see opportunity before it appears to others is the mark of the strategic mind, but to seize it recklessly is the mark of folly. Calculated patience allows you to recognize the exact moment when action will yield the maximum impact, when the stakes are aligned perfectly with your preparation, when the world cannot resist but bend to your will. In the shadows of inaction, the patient cultivates resources, alliances, and knowledge. Every relationship is a potential tool, every observation a possible advantage. The impatient waste these treasures, scattering their efforts in a flurry of premature gestures, while the patient conserves and multiplies them. Patience is the crucible in which power is refined. It teaches restraint, foresight, and the discipline to subordinate immediate desire to the overarching goal of dominance. Those who lack this discipline are blinded by the lure of the visible battle, oblivious to the deeper war being waged in whispers, in subtleties, in the quiet currents beneath the chaos. Calculated patience is also a form of deception. By withholding immediate action, by appearing inactive or disengaged, the patient mind conceals its intentions, allowing rivals to underestimate the depth of ambition and the sophistication of strategy. This concealment is not cowardice, it is preparation. It is the understanding that timing transforms the impossible into the inevitable. Every delay is a moment of accumulation, every pause a strategic positioning that will amplify the impact of the eventual move. Patience turns the invisible into the decisive. Those who act impulsively may achieve momentary success, but they will rarely achieve dominance, for they reveal themselves too soon and exhaust their advantage before the game is truly won. The art of calculated patience requires discipline of thought and clarity of vision. It demands the ability to tolerate ambiguity, to resist the temptations of immediate gratification, and to trust in the process of preparation. It is a recognition that power, like a shadow, lengthens gradually, and that to rush is to fragment it before it can fully form. While others chase after ephemeral victories, the patient architect of influence quietly lays the foundations of an empire, knowing that the moment of action, when it comes, will carry a weight no one can resist. The first conquest, the one that defines the limits of all others, is the conquest of oneself. Before power can be seized, before influence can be wielded, before fear and respect can be commanded, one must first master the tempest within. Human nature is a labyrinth of impulses, desires, and weaknesses. The ungoverned mind is a liability as dangerous as any rival. Strength without self-discipline is reckless, ambition without control is destructive, and brilliance without restraint is invisible amidst the chaos of undirected energy. The one who seeks dominance must first learn to silence the clamor of distractions, to temper emotion with calculation, to bend instinct and desire to the service of strategy. Mastery of self begins with awareness, a relentless scrutiny of one's own thoughts, feelings, and reactions. Every impulse, every fleeting emotion must be catalogued and understood. Anger, if unleashed, can destroy carefully laid plans. Desire, if indulged, can blind the mind to the opportunities hidden in plain sight. Fear, if unacknowledged, can erode resolve and cloud judgment. The untrained self is a battlefield, and without the discipline to command it, no external conquest is possible. Self-mastery is not repression, it is refinement. It is the ability to recognize instinct without surrendering to it, to acknowledge desire without being consumed, to feel fear without allowing it to dictate action. The controlled mind transforms chaos into advantage, turning every internal turbulence into a tool for strategy. Discipline is the currency of power. Those who cannot command themselves will be enslaved by circumstance, their actions dictated by fleeting emotions, their decisions swayed by the opinions of others. True mastery of self demands rigorous training, a constant shaping of habits, thoughts, and behaviors into instruments of purpose. It requires the capacity to endure discomfort, to resist temptation, to sacrifice transient pleasure for the accumulation of long-term advantage. Every moment of restraint is an investment. Every choice guided by intention multiplies potential influence, and every act of self-control sharpens the clarity of vision required to navigate the intricate games of power. The mastery of self also involves the art of perception. To control others, one must first understand them, and the understanding begins within. The disciplined mind recognizes patterns in human behavior, predicts reactions, and anticipates the consequences of words and actions. But none of this is possible if the self is unsteady, if thought is scattered, if emotion dictates strategy. Self-mastery stabilizes the mind, allowing one to observe the world without bias, to calculate risks with precision, to act with purpose while others are distracted by their own inner turmoil. It is a shield and a weapon, an invisible armor that protects from external manipulation, while sharpening the capacity to manipulate in turn. Equally important is the ability to endure solitude. Power is often forged in isolation, where the distractions of companionship, validation, and superficial connection are stripped away. In solitude, the mind confronts itself, examining weaknesses and fortifying strengths. The master of self uses isolation not as punishment, but as training ground, a space to cultivate resilience, reflection, and relentless focus. Loneliness is transformed from vulnerability into advantage as the disciplined mind emerges sharper, calmer, and more capable of decisive action. Mastery of self is not static. It is a constant negotiation between restraint and action, between awareness and initiative. It demands vigilance, for the human mind is prone to lapses, and every lapse can be exploited by rivals. To remain dominant, one must practice relentless self-examination, continuously refining control over thought, emotion, and desire. The one who wavers even momentarily exposes weaknesses that can be observed, anticipated, and used against them. Control of the self is both sword and shield, the first and most essential prerequisite to controlling the world beyond. Every great manipulator, every strategist who has commanded influence and instilled fear, begins with this internal dominion. The world respects no one who cannot respect themselves, who cannot govern their impulses, who cannot withstand the pressures of desire, anger, and doubt. To command others, one must first command the mind, for it is the mind that conceives strategy, endures adversity, and executes the subtle maneuvers that lead to absolute advantage. The disciplined self is a fortress and a springboard, a silent yet formidable engine of power that operates even when the world perceives only leisure or harmlessness. The world is a web of shifting alliances, hidden agendas, and silent rivalries, and to navigate it successfully requires more than ambition or force. It requires the keen eye of the observer and the flexibility of the strategist. Observation is the foundation of all power. Those who fail to see clearly are destined to stumble blindly, while those who perceive every nuance, every hesitation, every hidden motive, can manipulate events to their favor. It is not enough to act boldly. Action must be informed, deliberate, and guided by a comprehensive understanding of the forces at play. The mind that masters observation learns to anticipate the moves of others, to identify vulnerabilities before they are revealed, and to turn the environment itself into a tool for advancement. To observe is to listen without speaking, to watch without revealing, to absorb without distraction. It demands patience and restraint, for many are eager to display their hand, to voice their intentions, to broadcast their weaknesses. The shrewd mind remains still, taking in the subtleties that others overlook. The flicker of hesitation, the micro-expression of doubt, the small inconsistencies that betray true intent. Every person is a story waiting to be read, and every situation carries the potential for insight. Observation is both art and science, requiring an acute sensitivity to human behavior combined with the analytical rigor to decode patterns and predict outcomes. Without this skill, power is blind, and ambition becomes reckless. Adaptation follows observation like shadow follows form. To see clearly is of little use if one cannot adjust to what is seen. The world is never static, circumstances change, alliances shift, and unexpected obstacles emerge. The strategist who is rigid, who clings to preconceived notions or fails to modify plans in response to reality, is doomed to failure. Adaptation is the ability to bend without breaking, to pivot with precision, to align one's actions with the flow of events, rather than forcing events to conform to desire. Flexibility is not weakness, it is strength concealed beneath control, the capacity to maintain advantage even when the landscape changes. Those who master observation and adaptation are often underestimated, for their power is subtle, invisible until it is fully realized. While others act in haste, reacting to events with emotion or ego, the observer adapts quietly, positioning themselves strategically while rivals exhaust themselves in futile struggles. This patience, coupled with keen perception, allows one to exploit opportunities that the impatient or inattentive fail to see. To dominate, one must move like water fluid, unassuming, yet unstoppable when directed purposefully. Observation also demands discretion. Knowledge is power only when wielded with care, and the careless revelation of insight is often more dangerous than ignorance. The mind that masters this skill chooses carefully what is revealed and when, using information as both shield and weapon. Every observation carries the potential to shape strategy, but every misjudgment, every premature action can expose weakness. The strategist internalizes the lessons of observation, allowing the world to reveal itself slowly while remaining invisible in the process, like a predator waiting in plain sight. Adaptation is inseparable from resilience. The path to power is never linear. It is fraught with setbacks, betrayals, and unpredictable turns. Only those capable of adjusting their tactics, re-evaluating alliances, and recalibrating their strategies can maintain forward momentum. Flexibility allows one to turn adversity into advantage, to convert obstacles into opportunities, to transform moments of apparent weakness into platforms for dominance. Observation identifies the currents, adaptation allows one to ride them with precision, turning the unpredictable into a tool for progress rather than a source of defeat. The greatest masters of influence are those who see before they act, who understand before they move, and who bend their methods to the demands of reality without ever revealing the full measure of their intent. Observation teaches discernment, adaptation teaches execution. Together, they form a continuous cycle of perception and adjustment, a dynamic engine that powers ambition silently, invisibly, yet inexorably. Those who ignore these principles are doomed to repeat the errors of the reckless, moving blindly while the patient and perceptive rise steadily, accumulating advantage in every moment that passes unnoticed. The disciplined observer adapts not only to circumstances but to people, reading their desires, anticipating their fears, and predicting the subtle shifts that will determine their choices. Relationships, alliances, and rivalries are fluid, and the strategist must be capable of adjusting approach without revealing intention, of exploiting weakness without creating resistance, and of seizing advantage without exposing vulnerability. To observe without acting is incomplete. To act without observing is fatal. True mastery lies in the seamless integration of perception and flexibility, in the ability to bend the world to one's advantage while remaining unseen, in the quiet accumulation of insight and opportunity that will eventually manifest as undeniable influence. To dominate without resistance, one must master the art of concealment. The most formidable power is often hidden behind the guise of harmlessness, for when others underestimate you, they lower their defenses, leaving themselves vulnerable to your influence. Those who reveal the full extent of their ambition too early provoke suspicion, fear, and resistance. They attract challengers before their strength has fully ripened, and in doing so, they squander the advantage that comes from being underestimated. True strategy is subtle, invisible, and silent, allowing one to cultivate power while the world remains unaware of the impending storm. To appear harmless is to cloak intent, to soften perception, and to lull others into a sense of security, while every step taken is a step toward unassailable dominance. The skill lies not in deceit alone, but in the meticulous orchestration of appearance. One must project neutrality, humility, or even weakness while secretly gathering influence, resources, and knowledge. There is elegance in restraint, a silent command in invisibility. By allowing others to believe they are unthreatened, you create the perfect conditions for decisive action when the moment is right. The world tends to focus on the overt, the loud, and the ostentatious, overlooking the patient strategist whose quiet diligence ensures that every advantage is secured long before confrontation arises. The one who is underestimated operates in shadows, their progress invisible until it is too late to counter. Harmlessness is also a tool of perception management. Humans are inherently biased to respond cautiously to perceived threats. If you are too visible, too ambitious, too bold too soon, the very act of exposure triggers resistance, alliances against you, and preemptive attempts to curtail your growth. By contrast, by appearing unremarkable, even passive, one manipulates perception, shaping the assumptions and decisions of those around you without their conscious awareness. People reveal themselves to those they perceive as harmless. They disclose information, underestimate intentions, and leave gaps for you to exploit. Observation and opportunity flourish in the space created by harmlessness. Danger, then, is not announced. It is cultivated silently, allowed to grow beneath the surface until it becomes inevitable. The harmless exterior is a mask, a strategic camouflage, protecting the accumulation of power from scrutiny and interference. Behind this mask, knowledge is gathered, alliances are formed, and weaknesses are catalogued. The unassuming figure, dismissed by peers and rivals alike, can suddenly transform into a force whose influence cannot be ignored. The timing of this revelation is critical. To reveal too soon is to provoke resistance before readiness. To reveal too late is to miss the opportune moment when the world's defenses are weakest. There is also a psychological dimension to appearing harmless. Those who perceive themselves as secure in their assumptions become predictable. They act without suspicion, speak without caution, and underestimate the silent threat at their side. By cultivating this perception, the strategist gains control not only over the external environment, but over the very thoughts and decisions of others. Influence spreads invisibly, and when action is finally taken, it is executed with precision and authority, often leaving rivals shocked at the sudden emergence of power they never anticipated. Mastering the balance between harmlessness and latent danger requires acute self-awareness and discipline. Every gesture, every word, every interaction must be calculated to reinforce the perception of harmlessness, while concealing the preparation of decisive power. To fail in this balance is to expose vulnerability, to provoke unnecessary opposition, or to diminish the impact of eventual action. The art is subtle. It is a dance of appearances, a deliberate choreography that conceals intention while quietly positioning the strategist to strike with full force when conditions are favorable. The one who appears harmless until dangerous understands that patience, perception, and timing are inseparable. This strategy is not passive. It is the active shaping of reality through the careful management of perception. Every act of restraint, every display of humility or neutrality, is a move in a long game designed to maximize influence and minimize opposition. Those who rush to demonstrate power are often met with resistance, undermining, and betrayal, while those who master the art of concealment accumulate advantage in silence, unseen and unchallenged, preparing to emerge as a force so formidable that the world can no longer ignore it. All mastery, all strategy, all patience culminates in action. Power is not an abstract concept. It is a force that manifests in the world through decisive, relentless execution. Those who have cultivated patience, mastered themselves, observed and adapted, and concealed their strength until the moment is ripe, must now act with precision. The world respects results, not intention. Hesitation is weakness, and opportunity waits for no one. To act decisively is to transform preparation into dominance, potential into influence, and ambition into reality. Execution is the final test of all strategy. Every plan, every subtle maneuver, every carefully hidden accumulation of advantage is meaningless without the courage and discipline to convert it into action. Those who hesitate, who question, or who falter at the moment of opportunity allow rivals to claim the prize, while those who strike with clarity and timing impose their will upon the world. Power does not reward the hesitant, the distracted, or the uncertain. It is seized only by those who combine insight, patience, and preparation with fearless execution. The path to supremacy is neither short nor easy, but it is simple in principle. See clearly, act wisely, and strike decisively. The world is a battlefield of ambition, and those who endure, who learn, and who execute with relentless precision become the threat that cannot be ignored. Those who master themselves and the currents around them wield influence not by chance but by design. Every action, every decision, every calculated risk brings them closer to absolute authority. To walk this path is to embrace strategy as a way of life, to see beyond appearances, to act when others hesitate, and to become a presence so formidable that resistance becomes futile. The ambitious who follow these principles understand that power is not given. It is claimed, forged, and consolidated through discipline, cunning, and unyielding will. The combination of patience, self-mastery, perception, subtlety, and execution transforms a mere aspirant into a force whose presence commands attention, whose intentions shape outcomes, and whose influence endures. To rise, one must embody all these principles, moving silently until the world recognizes the inevitable truth that you have become the threat it can no longer ignore.